Okay, guys, so today 3.8 is the last lesson of the unit, and we have long division of polynomials. So we left that to the very last thing because it's kind of a culmination of everything that we've been doing. Now, there are some steps that I want to make sure that you guys write down because you'll be able to use these steps for every single long division problem. So make sure you write them all down exactly so that you can use them for all the problems. So, step 1. First step is you're going to make sure that you set it up like a long division problem, and you are going to divide the first term of the dividend. So you're going to set it up like long division, so it should look like, remember long division, guys? Where you have the thing and then the outside and the inside. So you're going to divide the first term of the dividend. The dividend is the inside part. Okay. By the first term of the divisor. The divisor is the outside, what you are dividing by. Okay. So divide the first term of the dividend, the inside, by the first term of the divisor, the outside. And you're going to write the answer on top. Then you are going to multiply the term from step 1 through the entire divisor. That's a big deal, okay? So make sure it's through the entire divisor, and you're going to write the expression underneath the dividend, just like long division. So basically you're taking the first term and figuring out how many times it goes into the first term on the inside. You write the answer on top, and then you multiply and write that on the bottom. And so then what do you do when you're doing long division? After you write the answer underneath the inside, you're going to subtract. Now, because we're subtracting an expression, make sure that you distribute the subtraction so every sign changes in there, okay? So that's the big thing. You have to change the signs because you're distributing the subtraction through the entire expression, so all the signs change. So after you subtract, you're going to bring down the next term. Remember that, guys? So you bring down the next term. And then basically you're going to repeat this until you can't divide anymore. Okay, so you're going to repeat all the steps, same thing over and over until you can't divide anymore. And then once you can't divide anymore, if there's a remainder, you're going to write it as a fraction and add it to the top. Okay, remainder over divisor. So what's left, your remainder over what you were dividing by on the top. So basically all the steps are exactly the same as regular long division that we've done before in the past. We're just now going to be applying it to polynomials. Okay, so example 1. I have x squared plus x minus 7 divided by x minus 4. So our first step here is to divide the first term on the inside, so that x squared, by the first term on the outside. You're always just concerned about the first term. The way that I think about this is how many times does x go into x squared?
1.
Or what do I multiply x by to make it an x squared? X. So you're going to write x on the top. Okay? So you take that very first term of the outside, and we need to figure out what I multiply that by so that it matches the first term on the inside. So in this case, it's x, yeah? Okay, so then your second step was to multiply that x on top, this guy, by the entire outside, because we're multiplying our answer by everything that's on the outside. So let's multiply, I'm going to take that away, x times x minus 4. What does that give me? X squared minus 4x. And you're going to write that right underneath, make sure it all lines up. Okay, so what would our next step be in long division? After we multiplied, we wrote everything underneath. What's our next step? Subtract. Now remember, you are subtracting that entire x squared minus 4x. So I am changing the signs of everything. So the x squared becomes negative, and the 4x becomes positive, because I'm distributing the subtraction all the way through. So you change every single sign to its opposite. And then we add straight down. Let me pick a different color. Now the reason we do this is because now x squared minus x squared, what happens? They cancel. And x plus 4x gives me what? 5x. Now with long division, our next step would always be to bring the next term down, and you keep doing this. So you're going to bring that negative 17 down. And you're going to do the whole thing over again. Okay? So you're still looking at that first term x. X times what is going to give me 5x? Times positive 5. So put a plus 5 at the top. Okay, so now you're going to take that 5, and we're doing the whole thing over again. So you're going to multiply 5 by the x minus 4. So 5 times x minus 4 gives me 5x minus 20, right? Now with long division, what do? After you've lined it all up? You subtract. So subtraction changes the signs. So 5x becomes negative, and 20 becomes positive. And then you are going to add. So 5x minus 5x gives me what? 0, which is what we want to happen. And negative 17 plus 20, what does that give me? 3. Can I bring anything else down? No, so I have a remainder of 3. So what you're going to do is you're going to write your answer, x plus 5, and then 3 plus 3 over whatever's on the outside, x plus 4, or x minus 4, sorry. So your remainder gets written as a fraction, and that is your answer. So example 1, I have 3x squared minus 11x minus 26 divided by x minus 5. The reason why I have this one written like this is because you have to also be able to set it up. Okay, so we need to set this up for long division before we can do anything else. What goes on the outside in your long division problem? The denominator or the numerator? The denominator. So this is going to be x minus 5 on the outside, and then 3x squared minus 11x minus 26 on the inside. All right, so we start with the first term of each one, x and 3x squared. X times what is going to give me 3x squared? 3x. So write 3x on the top. And then you're going to multiply 3x by the entire outside. So that's going to give me 3x squared, right? Minus what? Good. Good, minus 15x. And then what do you do? Subtract, so you change all the signs. So the 3x squareds cancel out, and what am I left with?
4x minus 26.
4x, and then you bring down the minus 26.
Oh, this is way easy. This one's easy.
It's the same. Okay, so then x times what is going to give me 4x?
4.
Plus 4. So make sure you put the addition or subtraction in there. So that gives me 4x, what? Minus 20, because I multiplied 4 times 5. And then you change the signs. And then we add. So the 4x's cancel, and what am I left with? Negative 6. That's my remainder. So your answer here is 3x plus 4 minus 6 over x minus 5. Now sometimes on your homework, the answer, when they have a negative remainder, they write it as, so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. I don't mark it this way, but plus negative 6, okay? So you're always adding the remainder, and then you put the sign with the numerator, because technically that sign belongs to the numerator. So why don't we write it like this? So it's going to be 3x plus 4. You add the remainder, but because that 6 is negative, it's negative on the top, okay? So plus negative 6 over x minus 5, and that's your answer, okay? So let's just do it that way to keep it consistent. So example 3, I have x squared plus 5 over x plus 1. What do you guys notice? Look at the numerator here. Is there anything missing? You have x squared plus 5. What's missing there? It's missing the x term, right? So can you make that note? Missing x term. Well, because we have an x squared term. Missing. I can't. It's not writing. Missing x term. There we go. Okay. So when there is a missing term, because do you guys notice how we go from x squared just to 5 and there's no x in there? When you are missing a term, you must put a 0 placeholder. So make that note there. So you must put a placeholder for the missing term. Okay. The reason being is because if you forget, if you don't put a placeholder, then our like terms aren't going to line up. And you need to make sure your like terms line up for the subtraction piece. So what would a placeholder look like? In this one, because you're missing the x term, you would write 0x. Because 0 times x still gives you 0, right? It's not like it's really there. But you want to put an x term there so that you can line up your x's, okay? And you'll see that when we do this. So let's set this up first. What goes on the outside? X plus 1. So on the inside, I have x squared plus 0x, that's your placeholder, plus 5. So we have to put our placeholder because when I start multiplying, I'm going to have an x term. But if it doesn't line up, you guys are going to start combining terms that aren't like terms. So I want to make sure that you put a placeholder if there is a missing term. So let's get started. We always start with the first terms. X times what is going to give me x squared? X times x. So you're going to multiply that x by the entire outside. So that gives me x squared plus 1x. See how those x's line up? So that 0 placeholder is there so that your x's line up. So now we can combine like terms. So what's your next step? Subtract. So that becomes negative, and the x becomes negative. So when I combine like terms now, x squareds cancel. What's 0x minus x? Negative 1x. Bring the 5 down. Okay, now I have x times what gives me negative x? Negative 1. So that's negative x, and negative 1 times 1 is minus 1. Change the signs, so that becomes positive, and the 1 becomes positive. What happens to the x's? They cancel. And 5 plus 1 gives me a remainder of 6. So my answer here is going to be x minus 1 plus 6 over x plus 1. So example 5 is written, or example 4, sorry, is written a little bit differently. I have 8x squared plus 34x minus 1 divided by 4x minus 1. So we want to set this up. What goes on the outside, guys? Good. 4x minus 1 goes into 8x squared plus 34x minus 1. I'm not missing any terms. I go from x to 1, and then on the inside I go from x squared to x to negative 1. So we're good. So what I want you guys to do now is divide using long division. Okay, so example 4. First step is I need to figure out what I multiply 4x by to get 8x squared. What did you guys get? 2x. Okay, so when I multiply everything by 2x, what do I end up with?
8x squared plus 2x.
Plus 2x?
Oh, minus 2. It's supposed to be minus 2x.
It's supposed to be a minus 2x because that's a negative 1. But then what do I do?
You do the change the sign.
Then I change the signs, okay?
Then it's plus
Good. Okay, so then what do I do?
36x.
Cross out, so that gives me what?
36x.
0 and 36x. And what do I do?
Bring it down.
Bring down the minus 1. Good. Okay, so then I need to figure out what I multiply 4x by to get 36x. What do I do there? 9? Positive 9? Okay, so that gives me 36x minus what? 9. And then what? Change the signs. So what does that give me?
8.
Just an 8. Okay, guys, so everybody, what would my answer be?
2x plus 9 plus 8 over 4x minus 1.
Plus 8 over 4x minus 1. How many of you got that correct? Excellent. Okay, so we have 6x to the third minus 5x squared plus 15x minus 5 divided by 2x squared minus x plus 3. Here's what I want you guys to do. Set it up first for long division. So that's the first thing that you're doing is we're setting it up for long division. So that's going to be 2x squared minus x plus 3. Do we have any missing terms there? No. And then we have 6x to the third minus 5x squared plus 15x minus 5. Any missing terms there? No. Okay. I'm going to let you guys try this on your own, see how far you can get, and then we'll finish it up before class is over. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what do I multiply 2x squared by to get 3x to the third? 3x. And when I multiply 3x by everything, that gives me 6x cubed. What?
Minus 3x squared plus 9.
9x, right? Okay, and then what do? Change the sign. So this becomes negative, that becomes positive, and the 9x becomes negative, right? Okay, so then when I add straight down, those guys cancel, and what am I left with? Negative 2x squared and plus 6x minus 5, right? Okay, and then we're going to do it one more time. 2x squared times what gives me negative 2x squared? Negative 1. So that's going to give me negative 2x squared plus x minus 3. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when I change the signs, that becomes positive, the x becomes negative, and the 3 becomes positive. So those guys cancel. What's 6x minus 1x? 5x. And negative 5 plus 3?
-2.
Okay. Can I multiply 2x squared by anything that will give me a 5x? No. So that's your remainder. So you have 3x minus 1 plus 5x minus 2 over 2x squared minus x plus 3. And that's your answer. So you stop there and you're done.